All right, boys, welcome back. Episode I'm gonna just go our next episode because soon enough we're not gonna remember the actual number that we're on. Just feels safer and better. But today I think as we are making our notes and just talking about things that are happening to us in real life, but also thinking about what Beyond the Pump stands for and what we want it to be and who we want to help, we're going to really be talking about kind of building an authentic brand, if you will. That's going to branch off into a couple of different conversations. And you might think it's going to be specifically about marketing, but I would say that this is going to be a little bit bigger than the marketing component of branding, but rather how do we set expectations or how do we help others set expectations of what they should expect from us from a consistent standpoint is going to be maybe my uber succinct way to put it. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
No, yeah, I'm ready to dive right into it with you. Sorry if I seem a little slow. I'm on some pain meds right now, so I may be a little groggier than normal.
Well,
Fight
we'll
through
make
it.
a quick note that they are prescribed for a literal
Yeah, they're
injury. That just
prescribed. They're
it's just
prescribed.
not random pain meds for the sake of being on
It's
pain
an
meds.
emergency,
But
These are not these are not for pleasure for sure.
yeah,
emergency room visit admittance.
Yeah. Well, and I
make
think,
sure.
to
Hold on, Andrew. Hold on.
Yes.
We got to share something today. Got to share something. We got our first batch of shirts in. We have some changes to
Oh
make, but
man,
the first batch of shirts are going to be coming
they
out
came in
soon
sick.
enough.
Mhm.
Just arrived at my house today. Super soft and going to be ridiculously amazing. So,
Mhm.
yeah, just wanted to share that real quick. But yeah, sorry I
I
cut
think
you
one
off,
of
dude.
them. Well, I was gonna say, I think one of them even has, some of the messaging that we're here to talk about today, which is, how to truly express who you are as a brand. And I think there's a strong element of self expression and being able to have a fair amount of clarity around the things that are important to you as an individual and having the I guess wherewithal to be able to express that concisely and clearly. So while branding I think is a great business term for the value expression of how people deliver and do business, I think that it's very much grounded in interpersonal, like how you see yourself, how you feel other people see you. And I'm really excited to bridge that gap of business and interpersonal development, because if you don't know yourself and you're not willing to speak up for the things that you do want, I think that that's really the trap that a lot of people fall into these days, especially when they're susceptible to all the social media stuff that's screaming at you to want something different, and it may not necessarily be the things that you actually want. So definitely agree that authentic branding, here we are.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. And on the heels of last week's kind of kickoff training that we're hosting, we talked around the idea of who you serve and what your ideal client is. And actually, what we're going to be talking about tomorrow is actually diving into who you are and what you want your business to look like. One of the pieces of homework that they received was building out their version of freedom, what it is that they're ultimately looking for in their business. A lot of people don't think about that. It's just, I want to go and build and grow a scale this business because this mentor, this guru, this whoever said that's what I should do, when the thing that actually would make you completely fulfilled is replacing your corporate job or having the time freedom to do what you want. And you probably need to generate 80, 100, $120,000 a year to achieve that goal. Not to say you can't go bigger and better than that, but let's get there first and let's solve the biggest problem you're currently facing in your life to get to your version of freedom, and let's start moving in that direction. And I do believe, as you pointed out, that for every person to go do that, they need to uniquely understand themselves and more so what they want and how they want the market to perceive them. And once you know who and what that is, you can now go out and truly be you, and you can truly market to the people you want to market to because you know these both sides of what you have going on. Is really a kind of an important piece to know that people don't do, because honestly I don't think people thinks it's as sexy as it really can be, but identifying this really unlocks a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, there was that book Tribe that was written, I'll say 15, 20 years ago, and it was revolved around the topic of finding the people that you were able to most authentically care about. And, not everyone is going to be best friends. Not everyone's going to be world class, supporters of someone else. And I think that where a lot of people get into trouble these days is not taking the time to identify who they vibe with, and, finding a client roster of people they truly genuinely want to see win and succeed. I mean, it really is just like, I had a mentor at one point that was talking about clients and follow up, and he was great with that, great with relationship building. But he said, think about your clients like they pay, like that client is paying for your cell phone bill, like that client is paying your car payment. And like that really didn't vibe with me. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but for me to reduce someone to a utility bill was not really the thing that I cared about. And so these days as a coach, I won't take on a client unless they have a goal that I think is really cool, or like someone that I really want to actually genuinely see succeed in that endeavor. Like some people are like, I want to lose 5 to 10 pounds. I'm like, that's cool. Like, why? And if they can't really explain that, then, there's an element of it would just be, and it would feel like I was just collecting another paycheck from them. Right. So I think that, yeah, finding your tribe, being authentic and all that stuff is really at the core of what it means to be a successful brand in 2024.
Hmm.
Brandon, anything that could?
Yeah, piggybacking off that too, just the question why, I think really reveals a lot too of what kind of direction you want to go with. And this can even, you take it back into like relationships, with I just remember like being in high school. I remember like, why do I want to hang out with these people? I mean, like, yeah, I guess they're cool, but why? And there's the same thing too when I work with people now. It's, how Andrew put it too, just I guess looking at people almost as like dollar signs, like, hey, this is what they're paying for. This is, um, that's your cell phone bill, that's your insurance bill. And so it's, yeah, money's, it allows us to continue going in a direction we want to do in order to help people. But I feel like once we start losing sight of that, that's where we can start losing our authentic self. Because if we're not, we lose our why, we kind of lose the goal that we initially had set out for. Because that's really the principle. And the same thing too, when you ask people, I've worked with clients and it's like, yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds. Why? It's like, oh, okay, well, I want to look good for my wedding. Okay, good goal, I guess. But once you start getting into the trenches of that, you're like, I don't actually like being in a deficit, or actually, I'm kind of happy with how I look. And then when we're, that why changes over time, but as long as they were communicating that with me, and understanding that what their yeah, I guess their why is always changing. And that's, I mean, I can kind of go into this all day, but yeah, it's as long as we're still in line with our why, I think we're always going to be able to continue to show our authentic selves. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great that. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Steve.
No, well, I was going to say, recently I would also say that as you define your version of authentic, your version of brand for you, you also understand what you're willing to tolerate and accept in certain instances. So I know, and not to open up a wound, Andrew, but I think making sure we talk about things that are very relatable to people.
Before we get into that, because I think that we are throwing this word around a lot, and I think that a lot of people have an inherently different definition that maybe they operate from when they think about authentic. And so, I think it might be helpful for audience if we just take a second to define how we kind of perceive the word authentic, and how, ultimately as we go through, how we can give people tactical things to be more authentic. But yeah, I mean, any thoughts or insights, Brandon, as you mentioned, authentic, Steve, as you mentioned, authentic, like what does that actually mean for you guys, or to you guys?
I think consistency is probably like a singular word that comes to mind. But last week I was at a client event, for example, and we sat down to have dinner, and I ordered an old fashioned with my dinner. And the guy sitting next to me goes, "That's extremely on brand." And we had no conversation around branding. He has no idea that I enjoy scotch, whiskey, bourbons, any of those things. And I kind of laughed a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I guess that fits. Why do you say that? And it's like just your mannerisms, the way you think about life, and he makes the joke. He's like, you stand in front of the room and the inner Italian with your chest hairs popping out. And I just imagine you sitting down with your glass of brown water, and that's just who you are. And it was kind of funny that the way I hold myself, and he out of nowhere was just like, oh yeah, that this is consistent, this is what I would think from you. But I think, back to that word consistency popping out, generally speaking, and I'm a human, I'm not perfect by any stretch, but if I say I'm going to do something, it's going to get done. If I'm going to be somewhere at a certain time, I'm going to be there, and usually early. If I set that goal, I'm going to try my darndest to achieve it, and people can usually take my word to the bank because that's how I'm going to show up. And for me, it's like those pieces, the knowing that people can rely on me when I say they should be able to, or they can, is an extremely important thing for me. So that for me is kind of the thing I think about. Again, I think it's representative of who I am, but I want to be able to rely on you when you say that you're going to do something and you're going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of, how what your values are, right? And that's what I hear in that is what do you most value? What do you really believe in? And for you, it's consistency, follow up, follow through. And I think that those are definitely on brand. If you were to take a fun side to your brand, what do you think would be encapsulated inside of that? Because I'm sure that you would agree that you're probably more than just the follow up and follow through. So what else might be an expression of your values or what you think is important?
Um, so I think I like to learn. People would expect that I'm always going to come up with a new way to tinker on something, learn, solve a problem. There's probably a better way. There's something new coming your way at some point in time if you hang out with me long enough. My version of having fun is probably a little on the extreme side of people. Like, hey, snowboarding, I need to hit 50 miles an hour down the side of the mountain because that's going to be my thing to get there. Or this is my year of Spartan races, and not only am I going to do Spartan races, but I'm going to do 7 Spartan races in 1 year, and 3 of which might happen to be in 2 days type mentality, because it's a really an I'll say, if I say it, it's going to be an all in type thing. Um, Maybe to my own detriment a little bit, but it's going to happen to the level that I can possibly or potentially make it happen.
Definitely an extreme adventure sport guy. Say it lightly. We'll open that one later. But Brandon, yeah, I mean, authenticity, what does that mean to you and how do you embody that?
Yeah, going along the same similar line as Steve too. I think yeah, the word consistency is if I'm going to say something, actually let's say I'm going to say the same thing to 5 different people, the exact same thing. And they never met each other, but they all got back to some a meet and greet or whatever, and they're all at like a party and they're all talking to each other and they're like, oh yeah, did Brandon say this? Did he follow through on that? And every single one of them, I would hope that they would all say, yeah, actually, yeah, he says this and he'll do that. Just being that consistent. I think that's more of shows your character more than anything too. As I think authenticity is a character trait when you really break it down. Because yeah, I think that's something that I'll see a lot of people on the dating apps right now. I'll see a ton of girls where it's like, if you say you follow through with what you say, and I was like, I feel like that should be like a bare minimum. Like, how is this like a weird new standard for you guys? So apparently that's not a thing that goes on in our world. But I think with consistency, that's more than okay. Yeah, I'm gonna deliver. Let's say you do say though, you're also I'm going to deliver you X results in X amount of time, and you aren't able to. Are you consistent on how you also respond to that kind of failure in a way where it's like, hey man, like that's on you. Sorry, I did my part. Or is it, hey, I really got to own up to this. This is my fault.
Because you didn't do the work. It's not my fault,
Yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah, yeah. And so even that, I feel like that consistency on just who you are, and that allows people to see if you're authentic. Because who you are, I think too with social media, there's always that social media image that people kind of relate people to, but then you'll hear sometimes Actually, I think this is a good example too. People grade celebrities when they meet them in real life. They'll be like, "Yeah, this person's really nice," on behind the screens. But when you go up and talk to them in real life, they're like, they don't want anything to do with you. I rate them at 1 out of 10 interaction. This person, just as bubbly as they are on screen, and they are like, they took time out of their meal and come over and talk to me, and we had a conversation. Like 10 out of 10 seems like a genuine person. So feel like that is something where, again, if your actions are aligning up with what you do in your daily life, day over day, I think that kind of reveals your authentic self, which again carries over into your brand as a whatever that may be with your company. If you're going to say, hey, we're going to deliver you results, and it's like 50-50 chance, 50-50 chance will deliver results, but we only need to get 50% of the people happy. Other 50, okay, let's just kind of keep doing that. Let's get the revenue that we can get. And hey, I mean, that's great. That's your authentic self. You like to you value the dollar signs over the relationships and the trust, but everyone's gonna have a different version of what authentic looks like. And really
Mhm.
that comes down to what people value and
Mhm.
what their values are at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's definitely an element of consistency in like what your specific brands are, and I couldn't agree more. I think for me, when I think about what authenticity is, and just defining that one word for a second, I think it's the ability to set enlivening expectations of what people should think about whenever they think about you. Like if you're walking through, well, actually, let me back up for a second. So there's this place called, I guess we'll throw out the name, um, Dick's Last Resort. And when you go there, people are absolutely assholes to you. And it's part of the service, it's part of the brand, which is you're going to go for a very eclectic dining experience. It's not the world's best food. And they will like write down nasty insults and make you wear the hat around. And like, I think about that. The authenticity of that is those people probably align with having that service delivery style to some format. And it allows them to come to life. And I think that inside of today's environment, like, part of my authentic stuff is that I really value interpersonal communication. And that means that the people and experiences that allow some introspection, right? Some self reflection, some sense of responsibility of how we show up in other people's lives. Like, those are the things that really cause me to get excited and cause me to ultimately allow myself to be the best version of me. And so when I think about authentic, it really is just this idea that no matter what you're doing, if you and this is kind of an interesting thing too when we think about introverts and extroverts. I don't really know if that's such a thing. I think that introverts inherently are just people that may not necessarily be as comfortable expressing who they are, maybe because they're worried about being judged or something else. So they kind of have to like play the game. They may have to act out a little bit, and so that might not be the most authentic expression of them, which might be why it's a draining experience. And so, as I think about that stuff, um yeah, if there is no interpersonal connection and there's no sense of responsibility on both people's parts, so like how can I make you better, that turns definitely into a toxic, like how do I give and how does someone take advantage of that, which I think is a great segue into the next thing we're talking about, Steve, which is what you're about to rip open. So boundaries are important when it comes to being authentic. What are you willing to take and what are you not willing to take?
Yeah, and so the boundaries thing is the way, that articulation. Also, what are you willing to deal with for certain things? And I think, before we rip it open, so to speak, I think
Jesus.
that stuff changes pretty rapidly based upon everything going on. So I don't think in any one day you're going to be willing to accept something very specific and then that's going to be the same thing forever. I think that does flex a little bit. But yeah, if you want to maybe explain the thing that we're ripping open and then we can just kind of dissect that a little bit, I think that would be probably a good jumping off point on this.
So when we think about the ability to be authentic, this is an opportunity for me to be authentic and talk about something that, historically, it's interesting because for me growing up as in an Asian household, there was a lot of expectation for you to obey, right? Having gone into the nope.
And
Having
you're
gone into the military stuff, right? There's also the perpetuated expectation to obey and like to fall in line and have the hierarchy thing. And so inherently there's a lot of people pleasing tendencies or a lot of external focus on like how do I fit in? How do I make sure I fit in? How do I do things that are going to be perceived as socially acceptable? And that doesn't necessarily lend itself to being comfortable expressing the things that you want, the things that you need, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a professional setting, whether, it's in a friend setting. This is where people are like, well, what do you want to have for dinner? And someone's like, well, I don't really know. And so I think understanding that and giving yourself some grace with that is an important part of being authentic and knowing how you are probably going to have a tendency to show up and explaining that to people so that you can give them an opportunity to support you through that. But what Steve is referring to is that recently there was a social media post that I made, and it was intended to be something that was more of a responsibility thing. And it was supposed to be reflective of like, here are the things that I didn't do that let me set someone else up to continuously not show up for me. I didn't speak up about it. I should have been more influential. I should have, been like, hey, listen, like we had this regularly recurring meeting that's been scheduled. You haven't shown up a couple times. Do we need to cancel that? Do we need to reschedule this? Do we need to whatever? But I just left it on the calendar. I would sit there and I'd usually be working for the first 5 to 10 minutes of a 30-minute meeting, wouldn't show, wouldn't say anything. And I just like, all right, cool. Just leave it alone, move on with my day. But it turned out that as I posted this, it was a carousel slide and it was misconstrued and misunderstood as it like the person that it was regarding thought it was a personal attack and it wasn't. So it was like this entire weird experience that, they took something that they weren't feeling great about, blew it up and made it about them. And I didn't want to necessarily have that be the thing. So I started to figure out like, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to say? Like, how do I make this okay for the other person? So I called Steve and we talked for like 45 minutes and he's like, yeah, you kind of suck at setting some boundaries sometimes. And, in certain occasions, if I don't feel particularly strongly about it, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But there are times that I'll definitely freak out on somebody and exert some boundaries. So that's more or less the context of what prompted the authenticity episode here. So, I mean, Steve, I don't know where you want to go with that, but
no, and for me, I just think of it this way, right? Our authentic brand is what we put out there, right? So somebody expected me to drink an old fashioned for whatever the reason was, right? And oddly enough, that was almost perfectly on brand. But then there's also this kind of what am I willing to take in from people that are in my world? And, I think I looked at it this way. You would never accept me no showing you on multiple meetings in a row, let alone getting up to like 54 meetings. Right. So it's like, but sorry, something wrong with my throat still. But there's this relationship or expectation that's built maybe between us where you now have come to elevate me and your expectations of me based upon history and everything there, that you wouldn't accept it if I just no showed you. Like I haven't signed in the True Coach for 2 weeks because I couldn't get in, right? And every time I went in there and I looked at it, it was like, this, and I can't get the password reset because, and I never followed up. Meanwhile, yesterday, so you're like, you're passive aggressive, reasons or results. So you're gonna sign in a True Coach and do your fucking workout, Steve? And not that I haven't been to the gym or anything like that, and you didn't use those exact words, but you're okay going like, hey, I'm going to nudge you because you should be doing this thing that isn't normal and I'm comfortable enough. Whereas you have an uncomfortability per se of like, hey, so and so, here's what I need. Meanwhile, on the other side of that, said person actually knew who they were and you didn't tag. I mean, it was quick. That was a really fast response. So I
just
think on the
very,
other side
very
of it,
uncharacteristic.
very
Very
uncharacteristic.
uncharacteristic. Yeah.
The thing that I might say on this one is like, there's probably a lot of grief that could have been avoided by just going out and like, hey, I don't feel good about this. Let me just have a quick conversation about it and get it resolved for everybody involved.
Yeah.
But I think the message that I want people listening to hear is know who you are and what you want to give, but also what you're willing to tolerate for people giving to you. That all matters, and it all goes along with your brand. And if somebody does something you don't like, hey, life happens. Some does something you don't like 54 times. Does life happen, or did you like make it happen and set them up for failure? And then whatever, right? Like I would think, just think about the ins and outs of that side of things.
Well, and I think that there's an element of, we kind of peel it back a little further. There's, you mentioned that course correcting on some of your practices. It's like, yeah, if there's not a login for a couple weeks, we'll check in and be like, hey, are you able to access the True Coach thing? Which is, guys, I'm not a fucking asshole when it comes to calling Steve out. Like, it's not like I'm like, hey, dickhead reasons, or like, that's not how it happens. So contrary to whatever he's painting me like, I'm usually
Wait, hold on. You are a hey, reasons or results, Steve.
It's totally a joke, but yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of trust like that has to be there.
You are a supportive coach. You're not a tear down the walls kind of coach.
I'm not. I really try not to be, because I think that everyone's in such a different phase and stage of their life that sometimes you need to let people not show up 11 times and they show up on the 12th and then they had some kind of life altering epiphany. And like, but I will say, and I do wholeheartedly agree that there has to be an element of trust, that it's either got to be trust in yourself or trust in the other person. And if you don't trust yourself, you're going to be wholly reliant on your environment to tell you it's okay to be yourself. And that's why people need a strong tribe. That's why creating an online community as a coach is essential for any kind of longevity. Like, you have to have people, because if left to our own devices, we won't do that. We don't trust ourselves, which is why people fall off the wagon. They don't think they can do it. Self-sabotage is wild these days. But I think that when we talk about the tactical, practical elements of how to be authentic, like you have to be a little ballsy. Like, you almost have to not give a fuck. Like, this is it. And in fact, there was, we used to have this coworker named Michaela, and, I hope to have her on Monday, but there was a meeting where she showed up on Monday and she was dressed up for something called Dragon Con, which is a sci-fi nerd, festivity 5-day event during Labor Day weekend, and people dress up, in like all types of, it's kind of like Comic-Con. And she shows up, she's like, yeah, I'm going to be dressed up like a cave troll or whatever for like 5 days, or a fairy princess. And everyone was like, what the fuck? Like, and it took some balls for someone to be able to say that they're doing something that was so contrary to what the culture accepted, which was like, golf and like sports and MMA, and like for someone to be like, I'm gonna be a pixie for 5 days. You're like, what the fuck? But like, she gained so much respect from other people that were like, I admire the fact that you were able to come out and say what you were actually doing. And I think that the world really could use a lot more authenticity from the perspective of the people that are for you will be attracted to that, and the people that aren't will be repelled by it. And the more you can do that, the more you put out things that are meaningful for you, and the more responsible you are for making sure that you get to express the things that are important in your values. Like, I think that's the stuff that I would like people to walk away with from today, is that just be you, and like, speak up when you need things, because if you don't, you're not going to allow people the opportunity to get to show up for you. And that's a very lonely and isolating experience. So either trust yourself or build a community of other people that you can trust will support you. So, I mean, guys, anything tactical, practical as we kind of figure out the 30-minute mark here?
Say what you mean and mean what you say.
There you go.
If it's on your mind, you should probably address it.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly.
John Mayer has a song, I think, all about that. Say what you need to say.
Oh, all right. There you go.
I didn't know you can sing, Brandon.
Oh, he can.
I'm not that kind of
Filipino. Brandon has a lot of hidden talents, for those of you that may not know. Actually, everyone on this call does. We should probably just have like a talent show episode one day. But
let's wait until people actually give a shit about us, and then we'll do a talent show, because I'm pretty sure 5 episodes in, no one gives a fuck.
Probably not. But yeah, Brandon, I mean, anything for you as it relates to like, establishing and just presenting yourself in a way that feels natural and authentic.
Speak what's on your mind, and don't be ashamed or afraid to ask what is on your mind, because sometimes you just need that little extra oomph to get you going in the right direction in order to show your true authentic self.
I love that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just saying what's there. It's amazing. So, all right, gents. Well, we are up at the 30-minute time limit that we try to set for ourselves to make sure that these don't go into 2.5 hour Tim Ferriss podcast style things. Um, but yeah, any closing thoughts as it relates to like authenticity, showing up, meaning what you say, and just being a genuine human in a socially connected world that seems like it's not?
I don't know that there's a blanket statement. If you're going to run into me, I think the biggest thing you need to do is be consistent. And if you say it, do it, or give me a heads up, right? Like I would guess, Andrew, which I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but in my mind for you, you need to make sure that somebody cares about you personally, which includes understanding, what you're doing in life, the name of your dog, and all of those pieces becomes an important factor. And I'm not saying that that's actually the thing, but the point I'm trying to prove is we all have different things that we care about in order to make sure somebody's showing up the way that they want to. So I think if you're going to talk to me, do what you say you're going to do, but the general takeaway there is find out what motivates and what helps people move, what makes them feel good, what makes them feel connected, and that's going to be the best way to serve them to the best of your ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, it's build trust in every opportunity you can, because trust builds relationships, and relationships will definitely help you stay authentic. So, Brandon, anything for you?
No, yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Build a trust, build a relationships, and yeah, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and put yourself in a into those awkward situations.
Yeah. Yeah. If you wonder if you have to ask it, just do it and get it over with. Don't wait for 54 meetings to pass. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share this with the people that you think could benefit from some authentic conversations in life. But until next time, thanks for joining us.